Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. With me today, I have Kevin Mlynarek with Ideal Traits and many, many other business ventures that I'm looking forward to getting into. But the reason why I have Kevin on today, he is the co-owner of Ideal Traits, which I recently used from a staffing problem that I had, and couldn't say enough good things about Ideal Traits. So I wanted to bring him on, tell us a little bit more about his program, and learn a little bit more about Kevin himself. So, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah, really excited to have you here. He'll hear more about your background and your journey with Ideal Traits. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and bring us up to today?
Sure. Yeah. So, boy, I guess I'll go back to, graduating from college. I'll try to
Yes,
make it
as far
quick.
back as you want to go.
Yeah. And I never thought about being in insurance. In fact, I wasn't. I went into the car business. And interestingly enough, and this will play the part of the history of how Ideal Traits was kind of born, is I graduated and it's like, you know what? I just wanted to get a new car. And it's like, well, how am I going to do that? I'm like, well, if I sell cars, they'll give me one. So I'll get
Brilliant.
a new car, right? So I go to the first dealership and I fill an application and they say, no, you're too young, no sales. Second dealership, no, you're too young, no sales. Third dealership, same thing. Fourth dealership, I walk in and they hand me an application and a personality profile assessment. So I sit down in the corner, I fill it all out, I turn it in. 10 minutes later, they bring me into the interviewing room, and I'm sitting there with 4 suits. They start interviewing me, and at some point they say, look, based on your assessment, this says you can sell. And the rest kind of became history of how I got hired there and did really well at sales, then got promoted into special finance manager, sales manager, on
Okay.
and on and on. So, and I really loved it and enjoyed it and had a great mentor there. And the owner was so adamant that every single person that ever got hired there had to take a personality profile. And it didn't matter if you were applying for a porter or if you were applying for sales or even general manager, like you all took it. And his whole point was you need to know more about these people prior to hiring them.
Wow.
And it's too expensive to make a
Wow.
mistake. So that's my background. And having that, my son was born 12/31/2005. So he's 17 now. And when he was born, it's like, I can't work these same hours. The hours were ridiculous. I'd wake up, he'd be sleeping, go to bed.
Yeah.
He'd be sleeping by the time I got home. So I need to find a new career. Again, fast forwarding, long story short, I looked at 2 industries. One was insurance, and one was financial, being a financial planner. And I say I really kind of took the easy way out with insurance. Like I'd rather talk to my family and friends about, hey, I'll write your home and auto versus, give me your $1 million. So ultimately I went with Allstate. And I opened my first agency in March of 2007. And when I opened it up, it's time to hire, right? So this is my first time hiring. It was just me and my wife she was going to be my CSR, right? But I needed someone else to sell. So what did I do? I just turned out the only thing I knew how to hire would be to put an ad out there and, people apply. And then I gave them the personality profile assessment that I was using really at the dealership.
So you started using that there
Yeah.
at the dealership. So you got to know it a
Yeah.
little bit, understand it. Okay.
So it literally was what I was hired in off of.
Yeah.
Now back, I won't even say the years ago. No, it would be 1994.
Wow. Okay.
Is when I got hired. 95, I got hired in at the dealership, and it was the same form, a form of what it is today. And so it's like that's how I hired all the people at the dealership, the salespeople and the service, how we hired everybody. And so again, when I opened the agency, it's the only way I knew how to hire is use a personality profile assessment.
What a great introduction. I mean, for you to be introduced to that assessment at an early age, which was, such an eye opener,
Yeah.
and something that just makes perfect sense, right? Most of us just don't know that, don't see that.
And it really showed through in our business because we would outperform our market with less people. So we had less salespeople than the same Pontiac dealership down the street that had, 2 times more. And it's because we hired the right people that could sell more,
Yeah.
more cars per person. And so we outperformed our market based on that. And it was all because we're hiring the right people.
Right.
So we knew the skill sets, we knew the traits that were required to create a great salesperson. And then at that point, we just did rinse and repeat.
Okay.
So I hired my first salesperson, month 1, Isaac Whitney, and he started crushing it. And it's like, well, if 1 was good, then 2 would be better. So I hired another one, Josh Martin, and I hired another, and 5 first year. And then if 1 agency is good, hire another, open another. And so I ended up opening up Allstate agencies in 07, 08, 09, 11, and 2014.
Wow.
So five locations, and got up to about 30 staff.
Wow.
After about 8 years, we had $20 million in organic written premium, earned premium. So it, hiring the right people.
After 8 years, you said.
Yeah.
Now, do you still run that agency?
I just sold that agency last July.
Okay, so, you did. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And ironic enough about that is kind of a similar story. So Matt Saint is now the owner there. And so it's Matt Saint, Allstate agency in Lake Orion, Michigan. He came to me 8 years prior, and his only job, Brad, was at McDonald's flipping burgers. He's 20 years old, flipping burgers. He applies to my job ad. He's on Ideal Trades, right? And there was something in there that told me, well, there was a lot in there that said he would be great. And I'm like, this guy's at McDonald's, right? He's making $10 an hour.
Yeah.
And he has no background, no college, no sales, no nothing. And it's like maybe that kid that was trying to get a sales job that had no sales experience at a car dealership, right?
Correct.
And so I hired him. And he progressed and ended up, running the agency. And he's the one who bought the agency in July.
Wow.
7.
Well, what a story.
Yeah. So, I can't make it up. So, and now Matt Saint's the owner.
Wow, that's amazing.
And he's doing great.
And you gave him a chance. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So Ideal Traits, that was started in 2012.
Correct.
So about 5 years into your,
into
your insurance journey. What led to the creation of Ideal Traits?
Yeah. So, we started out and we were really having great success at the agency. We kept growing because we had the right salespeople and the right people in place. And so Allstate was having me speak, really kind of all over the country to lots of people. And it would come down to like, okay, Kevin, like, how do you do it? How are you growing? And it's like, well, I really look at it as a math problem. I'm not that smart, but the more people I have, the more they can sell, the quicker I can grow, and the faster that I can build this earned premium with the renewal revenue. So they just started asking, like, okay, it's the people. Great. Well, how do you find them and how do you source them? And it's like, well, we put our ad out there, and then ultimately, we give everybody a personality profile assessment, right? And the whole crowd was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I don't use that. Yeah. I never heard of it. Just small business owners, right? All large companies use this on grand scale.
Yeah.
But it's like most insurance agency, when they hired, and even when I hired, I had a hiring background at the dealership of hiring salespeople, but it's like they don't get into it thinking, I'm going to be hiring a bunch of people. Right. I think they just automatically envision themselves sitting at their desk with 5 desks around them, and they're just full. and the clients come in and you sit down and everybody's busy, but it's like, well, how did you get them? Like, you have to find the right ones. And so it's like they didn't get in it to hire people, but it's like this massive deal, a massive part of our role is to hire and train, because without them, nothing. Like, we literally, I mean, zero success. I could never have written that type of premium, won any award by myself. It's all the team. So you have to surround yourself with great people.
But you had the foresight when you got started in insurance to, it's not just going to be me. It's just, I'm not getting in to be an insurance agent,
Right.
I want to grow an agency.
Yeah.
Most of us don't start that way. We start out, insurance agent, residual income. That sounds great, but it's very narrow thinking.
Yeah.
And then we sort of grow and back into this agency. That was your goal from the beginning.
Right. And I think part of it started is being successful at the dealership and having already have this bar and this level of income and lifestyle. And then starting at the agency, it's like, well, I'm just going to back into the numbers of where I need to be. And I needed to be better than where I was, along with more freedom was my goal. So I'm like, well, in order to achieve that, then I'm going to have to write this. In order to write that, I need this many people. And it's like, again, it just comes down to, it's like real simple math to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
okay, so let's get back to the creating ideal traits. So you're speaking and you're telling people about this personality assessment.
Yeah.
Take it from there.
Yeah. So I come back from an event in Chicago and I call my brother up and I said, listen, there's a massive need for these insurance agents to help them with hiring. Like, they don't use a personality profile assessment. Now, at the time, my brother is also an Allstate agent, and he's also using the assessment, and he's also having great success. So it's like, all right, let's get together. And we literally we'd go to the library, and we had a piece of paper, and we just started kind of drawing it out, and what would it look like? And the thing that we always kept in mind is we wanted to make it specific and specialized and very niche for the insurance industry.
Okay.
So that's what we started building. We found developers that we could work with, and it took about a year to develop. And when it came out, at first, it literally was just a personality profile. Like, that's it. That's all we had. And I remember going to the first insurance conference, the mega conference, and we were in Vegas, 100 people there, and 50 people signed up. Like, literally just in one day. So it's like, well, I think we do have something, and it's just been going on ever since. Just continue to build it, and so it's been great.
So give me a little bit of a idea of how the program, how the company has evolved since 2012 through now. Like you said, initially all you had was the personality assessment, which, by the way, is that an assessment that you created or put together, based off of an original assessment you were using, or is there an actual name for this personality assessment?
Yeah, so it is based off a 100-year-old tried and true personality assessment. And we've had ours tested, and the validity of it is 92.7% valid. So it is based on that. And then what we did is we used all of the words for insurance to make it very specific and easy for insurance agents to use. As an example, and I'm sure you've seen it too, like, this would make a great insurance sales producer. This person would be great in a customer service role. So that type of a situation. We started out with just the assessment. And then we had our clients tell us, which makes sense, well, how am I going to advertise for it? Like, I just kind of do it on my own? And so what we created, and I give my brother more of the credit for sure, is this way to create one job ad and then point and click and send it to, ultimately, through aggregation, over 100 job boards at a time.
Wow.
which sounds really awesome and wow, but the reality is that you get most of your job hits are gonna be from Indeed.
Okay.
And it's just because they are just the, call it 10,000-pound gorilla in space.
Okay.
And they just dominate. So other job boards will have it. They just don't get as much traffic ultimately. So we work with Indeed. We promote Indeed because we know that it provides the most, but we just are a portal that when you click a button, when you pay Indeed, you're paying 100% of your money to them. We just want you to be successful as an insurance agency. So we'll continue to seek out, if there's other job boards that work well too, and then we'll add them to our network. But ultimately, Indeed is where really the most action occurs. Keeping in mind, Brett, like the number one source, we would always say, in any agent, they say, well, listen, I don't like Indeed, I like referrals. And I would say, you should do that. Like, I'm not trying to compete with your referral. Or you could, there'd be someone in a small town is like, well, I advertise at the bowling alley. You should still do that. Like, again, not competing with any source. If you don't have any, then I would use the job boards. And if you have one you like, then I would say you should use that. But ultimately, wherever you get any candidate from anywhere, then you should want to know more prior to hiring them. Real quick story, my cousin who graduated from a great Hillsdale College in Michigan, great grades, was managing a physical therapist office, wanted to come work for me. I said, look, everybody who works for me, they have to take the assessment first, and you have to pass. It's got to make sense. On paper, perfect candidate. He took it, and it's like, dude, you won't enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy sales. It's not a fit for you. And I never hired him because of it. So the main point is just hiring on their personality.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's something they would enjoy, because we do them a disservice, right? If we hire somebody and they're not a fit for the role, we've probably all been there. Like, they're like, not getting good results. They stretch it out and you're like, you can do it. Come on. And then you win them over for a little bit and ultimately falls apart. You're farther down the road, more money spent. They're not happy. You're not happy. It's a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's stay on that. So you have evolved from just a personality test to a platform that sends out to, the major hiring sites. So that's what you created then was call it a dashboard or what you call it on that. And how early was that you started basically creating this dashboard or hiring dashboard?
So what we created, like on top of that, would be the applicant tracking.
Okay.
Is really, which is our, the dashboard is where you can kind of see the metrics on our site. And then once you get into reviewing candidates, then you've got the applicant tracking. So you've got all these different folders of where you can view people in the different stages that they are. So we're in the interview stage. We sent them a video interview. We're sent them assessment. They completed the assessment. They just applied. Haven't talked to them yet. So all these different stages that agents can be able to segment, or you can just view it all at one time.
Yeah.
So those are the main three things: is the applicant tracking, to be able to recognize the top candidates and to be able to sort it in any way you'd like to see them. And then you got writing the job ads, and then you've got the assessment itself. And that's those are the main components. And then we've added and working on other ones as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll kind of give a little breakdown from, I recently, just within the last couple of months, used Ideal Traits. I needed to hire an account manager. And I put, I was fortunate enough to connect through Safeco Insurance elite agency partner program. So they basically funded it for me. And jumped on the Ideal Traits program. First of all, the site is very clean. It's easy to use. You get a consulting call with one of the Ideal Traits professionals on what how you might want to gear your ad. They have all kinds of templates for ads that you can use or at least, draw some, you know, get some ideas from on what you want to put out there. So you submit your ad. I submitted 2 ads. I was comfortable with having either a remote employee or a local. I really wanted to have a local or a hybrid, but didn't really think that was going to be a possibility. I submitted my ad. I ran it for about a week, and there is an option, as Kevin, mentioned, that Indeed is kind of really the big one in the market. I didn't even boost it. You can put a little bit more money into an ad and Indeed and really get it out there. I didn't do that. I just sent it out. I got 57 applicants on the remote ad in less than a week, and I got 2 on the local. Neither of the 2 local were qualified, and of the 57 that had filled it out in a week, about between 30 and 35 completed the actual assessment. And so the assessment process is, and Kevin, just stop me if I am not explaining this properly. So I would guess that the assessment, so there's a personality assessment, there is a 15-question problem-solving quiz, and then there is a 5-question short answer question specifically for a customer service role. I didn't do anything with that. I left it. I did read the questions. They were satisfactory to me with what was being asked. And so I didn't touch that at all. So all that was done for me. All I did was submit my ad, and then basically the process was set up as it was. So about 30 to 35 people completed this assessment. And I would say that whole assessment problem solving takes maybe somebody 30 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, the average is about 38 minutes for the complete assessment overall.
So I think I like that, because that is a commitment on their end. On you can tell who's interested from that, if they're willing to go to that length. And I was really impressed with the information that I was able to obtain from all 3 of them, really. With the assessment, it gave very detailed information. It gave a little summary of what, where they landed. Talk about that assessment a little bit. Talk about the information that it provides you and what it tells you from that assessment.
Sure. Yeah. So the main drivers of it that we look at is, number 1 is motivation and drive, which is huge when determining a salesperson. You want to know that they are self-motivated, that you don't have to continually, pat them on the back. Like, they're going to come in and be like, let's go. The next one is persuasive and convincing. So obviously, if you're going to be selling something, you have to be persuasive and be able to convince people. That one is still high with some customer service. They just don't have the motivation and drive that they want to get up and go make a bunch of phone calls.
Yeah.
If somebody calls in on the phone, they have to be persuasive to add another line and to persuade them to stay with your agency. So it's still high. And then we get into structure and routine. So that's where salespeople, this is where they fall off.
Yeah.
Right? I won't show you my desk because it's a little so structure and routine. So now you've got a CSI that has a higher structure. They like structure.
Yeah.
I come in and I'm going to be doing the same thing. And then the last one is thorough and compliant. Again, CSRs, that's good. Follow through. Dot the I's, cross the T's. Salespeople, not so good. It doesn't mean they're bad people.
Yeah.
A salesperson can be thorough and compliant. They can be structured. They just don't like to be. They would just rather, and that's how you really should look at the assessment, and it's to the degree of the highest number. So my first go-to is my motivation and drive. Like, let's go. My second go-to is persuasive and convincing. My third, and then by how far is the third? If it's close to second and third, then I still like it. So that's why we do the scale of 1 to 100. We all understand what that means. A 14 is low and an 89 is high, right? And then when you look at the numbers, there's going to be a 1, 2, 3, and 4 as far as the level that they are. You can't have 4 100s. That person doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You can't do it on the assessment. So it weeds that out, and then it just prioritizes of the 4, what are your most dominant and your least dominant, and then the 2 in the middle. So it helps you really determine what they're good at. And then from there, that'll filter into 16 different results. From the 16, you'll be able to read 3 paragraphs. And then, but not only that, you can just click on a video and it'll say, hey, if you're looking at a sales leader and what sales leaders typically like to do, and here's how you motivate and you manage, and here's what they don't like and you probably shouldn't do to motivate. This would demotivate them. And it just gives a little description on a 2-minute video. If you don't want to take the time to read it, just hit play, sit back, drink your coffee, listen to it.
Again, super helpful. And I had to do those. And so it puts them into, different categories of knowledgeable, organizer, closer might be what, I mean, how many buckets are there? 16.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, really interesting. And a piece from that, I wanted to have my last couple hires. I was sort of looking for some sort of problem solving task because I wanted to know that, because I've had issues in the past with not hiring problem solvers.
Right.
In fact, the last thing they wanted to do was solve any problem, which ultimately made more work for me. This was simple. Can you talk a little bit about that problem solving quiz and how that works?
It's interesting because we added that in a little bit later, and it's like, well, this would be a nice way to kind of gauge some intelligence, kind of gauge if somebody's going to understand the first time maybe you tell them and not like keep asking you the same question over and over. And the response that we got, I mean, we have agents that like will not hire if it's like below a 9. Some are 10, some might be 8. But it's like, I've had a 7 before, and it's like, this person just couldn't grasp what we were trying to do, and it was too laborious to try to teach them. And so they raised their bar of what level, and this is out of 15 answers of problem solving. So, really 10 is what most agents say, 10 and above, they really get it. Now, if you get a 9 and you get a great profile, will you interview them? Yeah, you probably should. It's not an automatic, but if you're getting into the low single, mid to low, it's like, it's not going to work. Like, they're not going to be able to probably comprehend what they need to get done.
But it's also just giving you a little more information.
Right.
Just a little more information to base it off of before you even speak to somebody, by the way.
More, exactly. So you bring up a really good point. And that's how I think that I would say, without patting our company too much in the back, how we kind of revolutionize the hiring in insurance agencies is by saying this before. Because here's the thing, Brad, you've been there too. When you're hiring someone, we're automatically emotionally involved in it, right? We want the person that we interview to be the right one. And sometimes the ones that aren't that seasoned could ask them a bunch of softball questions and really set themselves up for failure. It's like, will you show up on time, Brad? And they're like, yes. And it's like, do you like to work? Yes. And if you had to stay late, would you stay late? And they're like, probably yes. And we're like, yay! Because we want them to answer right, because we want to fill the chair. We don't want to look at this empty seat anymore. So every interview we go into wanting them to be the perfect person, and then ultimately sometimes we create them to be what we want them to be. Now, if you take the assessment, you give it to them prior to it, now here's what you're doing. You're helping yourself logically go into the interview or not allow yourself to get emotionally attached, because that's happened too. People have done it both ways. They look at the assessment, they're like, oh no. And then they interview and they're like, I think they can do it. And it's like, no, they can't. Or they fall in love with the candidate. This person's going to be great. Now I'll give them the assessment. The assessment comes back negative, and they're like, maybe this is one of those 6%ers, right?
Yeah.
It's not right. and they're like, they find themselves 90 days later, 15 grand in the ditch, right? And saying goodbye. Again, these people aren't bad. It's just not the right fit. That's all for the role.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the point is, prior to the interview, is making a logical decision and not the emotional, which is supernatural and easy to do. And we can all fall into that category of getting them, because it's an emotional hire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And then the third part of the assessment is the short answer. So there's 5 questions. And again, I didn't touch them. You can make your own. You can, use what you want. You can use the list of questions that Ideal Traits has. But to me, that gives an opportunity to for them to showcase their writing skills and some of their communication skills, which are so important. With what we do. I mean, the vast majority of our correspondence is email. So I want to see how this person communicates. I want to see how they explain what they want. It asks them, what they want out of the position. So it kind of gives you a little more insight into their line of thinking. So, those 3 things as a whole really armed me with a lot of good information before I was even, went back before I talked to anybody.
Right.
And again, with this dashboard, and you can follow right along their method. And of course you can, do whatever you want with it. I selected 8. You can also rate them, with which is helpful, because when you're going through 50 resumes or 100 resumes, it helps to kind of earmark a few to remember where you were, which ones you like. You can make notes. Again, it's just all very clean, to be able to use. You can move them into a different folder that I'm going to move them over into a phone interview folder. So I did a phone interview of 8. I have never done a phone interview of 8 people. And with this, because I've never did I've never did a phone interview before this. It also gave you a good, there were some good examples of good phone interview questions or good interview questions. So it's not just, a platform and a personality assessment. It gives you all the tools that you need throughout the hiring process, which, let's face it, most of us, grow into this industry as insurance agents and selling policies and selling. We're not HR people.
Right. So true.
So this is a way to kind of outsource this type of work, or arm us with the right information that we need to make the right hire. You hear it's definitely a buzzword, right person, right seat. This helps us get the right people in the right seat. And so, like I said, I was looking for a CSR account manager type. Before Kevin and I jumped on the call, he showed me specifically, like if you were looking for a producer type, that a calculator that they have to help you get a strong producer. Kevin, can you touch on that a little bit if you're looking for that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what I'll do is I'll kind of just share my screen here.
Yeah.
And present. And so the quick setup to this is just, to me, like, I always looked at hiring salespeople as a growth strategy and not an expense. And if you take anything away from this, and hopefully this calculator really set it home. And I didn't have this calculator before, and I knew the numbers were large, but I didn't put all the numbers into it. Like, how long does it renew? How many times? And a lot of agents that I've talked to, you look at, and I did in the beginning too, you look at just, okay, I get 10%, 15%. I could never pay more. And it's like, okay, but you're getting paid 9 more times, 9 more years off of that one. So maybe you can afford to spend more to find a great person in sales, because some people, right, Brad, they're not going to apply to 40 grand. They end sales and they're like, I want to make 75, 80, it could be 100,000, but they're great. Keep in mind, they're great. It's not your typical, you're not paying somebody 100 grand to do 20 items. These 100 grand people, and I've had them, they do 100 items a month. Now, I paid them up to 120,000, but they're doing 100 items a month. So you can do your own math on, I want them to do 50, 60, how much you're going to expend. So again, I wanted to put the numbers to it and get the calculator and find out how much do you really make over time. So we came up with this. Let me share my screen here. This calculator here. And can we see it okay here?
Got it.
Okay. And me and Brad went through this. And Brad, just so you know, whether it's in, we'll be able to provide, anybody kind of reaches out to Ideal Trade, you can have this.
Okay.
So there's no cost to it. Let me know. You can send me an email, Kevin at Ideal Trades, and I'll send the calculator to you. But here's the example that me and Brad went in just before coming on as an example to kind of save time too. Okay, he wants to hire one more staff and it's going to pay him $65,000. And I'm going to do this just for example purposes first. We're going to say they stay there for 8 years. I get it could be lofty, but certainly a lot of people have been there for 8 years. They're going to write 20 new autos. Now, Brad's average is 420, which is probably below the average across the country, but we'll leave it. This is Brad's commission on average. It varies, some 15, maybe some 13. So he's got 14, retention 92, and then his auto increase is typically 10% over time. Home business, they'll write 10. So we're talking 30 items. Home and auto, average premium on home, same thing, 15 and 15 for his commission, 92% retention, and then a 10% increase overall. Again, I would love for you to do your numbers, but this will directionally show us a story here. Here's the story, which is, it's almost mind-boggling. I promise you, we've literally spent a couple months verifying every single number over and over and over just to make sure that it absolutely was perfect. And it is. And so here's year one. So in reality, he would make 60,000 and the expense would be 65. He loses 4 grand, right? Year two, he nets 65,000. Here's his commission with renewals. It shows right there, the renewal, and then payroll. Now here's payroll again, the same, 134, boom, boom, boom. Year 8, he's netting 500,000 with all of the renewals. This is his total net revenue from this one employee. Mind-blowing, right? Like you could spend so much more. And it's like, all right, Kevin, well, they're not going to last 8 years. They're going to last 3. Okay, let's take a look at 3 years. Right there, you're going to net 134. Here's the crazy picture. They leave. They meet the love of their life. They travel across the country. They sail away in a boat, like whatever, right? 5 years later, Brad's making $225,000 off the employee that's gone for 5 years. And you're like, well, how does that happen? Well, the premium keeps increasing. You're not paying commission on it. And I do get the story. Again, you can do this on your own. You can say, but you got to pay a CSR. Yes, you do. Okay, how much are you going to pay them? How much does it take? So there are expenses, right? And just subtract them from here, and it still is just showing the story about how much. And then here's this additional premium. So his book value is now $1 million higher. So.
Pretty neat, pretty good tool.
Yeah.
As a part of that, do you, I don't mean to put you on the spot here and it doesn't matter, but I know a lot of, I mean, as you know, every compensation plan is different. Is there a formula in there that if you were going to pay that producer 20% or whatever, and we don't have to go back to it. I'm just wondering if it exists, because that's something that some might want to see too, if they're really taking a close look at it.
Yeah. So there are so many ways to break down that point. And so that would be, I would say, the only homework that the agent would want to do, because it could vary and we could have 100 fields specific to everybody. And then, so it's like, how much would you pay him in total compensation? So if they can run the tab out and say, I'm they're gonna write X amount of premium, and I'm gonna pay them this, and this is what I'd be happy with. And then they could plug in that number to total compensation, bonuses, and you can just go high. You can put a high number in there for total comp, up to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, right.
Write a number so you know what it is. And I think, again, the ultimate story is you can't really blow up the calculator. You can blow it up if you have a terrible salesperson that you're paying a lot. Totally get it, right? But even like you're overpaying somebody and they're doing okay, you're still going to win like big time. But again, I would just highly encourage, I really want them to do it with their numbers, and I'll personally be happy. Personally, I'll go through it with them. We'll get on a Zoom. I'll go through it with them.
Okay, cool. Something I just thought of as we were looking at that, and which reminded me of some questions, or a common question that came up as I was talking to others that hire remote. And I'd be super impressed if you have this information, but I don't expect you to, and I don't think you do. Common question was, any idea what the average CSR makes in Florida, in New York, in whatever it is? Because one thing I thought of while I was going through this remote hiring process is, I'm assuming the CSR in New York makes a lot more than they do in, Blaine, Minnesota.
Right.
Do you have any research on that at all?
I don't, Brad.
I didn't expect you to.
But it is good, and we could do some research. And I think that's what some agents are finding. You might find the New York agents finding people, saving salaries, going remote, and hiring them from Minnesota. I mean, you don't know.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that. I have heard that. In fact, specifically New York agencies that have looked and almost targeted in Florida.
Yeah.
Tougher market and lower wages, all that.
Right.
In addition, that calculator is amazing. What other kind of add-ons are there to the program? As I was digging around, I did see you can do background checks, right on the system. What other features are there on the Ideal Traits platform?
Yep, you can do custom stages. That way you can arrange it to fit your specific hiring process. Yes, you can do background checks. Some of the latest, and I'll just present this real quick here, just to show you, let's see, some of the newest things that we've come out with. We're actually going to be doing a post on this coming up this week. We've helped 100 agents so far with this candidate engagement, which is really cool.
Okay.
And here's just a quick 5 steps. We onboard. This is for the agent who doesn't have time to find the candidates. I will say up front that it is reactive to how your job ad performs, and that we aren't proactively searching resumes to get for the agent. So it's anybody who applies is what we're attacking. So we do a 30-minute call with you as an example, Brad. We find out what you're looking for and what's unique to you. Then we do job market research in your area, and then we create a custom job ad specific to you. We write it. And then what we do is anytime somebody applies, as soon as they apply, we'll reach out 3 times, phone calls and 3 emails. So we get them involved. And then what we do is we'll schedule access to Ideal Traits interview, our one-way interview tool, which we can talk about next. And then I'll just scoot down here to the pricing of it. So if you did the next 30 applies is $750. Again, this is what we would do. And then this one right here is $100. So it's not time-based. Brett, some things are like, well, for the month. This 100 applicants could take, depending on what you're looking for, 5 months. You wouldn't pay any more. It will last until you reach 100 applicants or you hire, and that's $1,500. So it ends up being, in this package, $15 per applicant. We'll reach out, connect, talk to, send them a video interview, tell them about your agency, and get them engaged and keep you updated. And so you also have 30-minute calls once a week where we'll update you on your account. So
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we've just added is ideal traits interviews. And really, it's just, this gives a real good example of it, how you send out 5 questions, they answer the 5 questions, and you simply just click play. And now you can see and hear
Yeah.
your candidate answering your questions. In 10 minutes, you're going to get a real good idea about who they are. And so this program is $99 a month with no commitment level. You do it
Okay.
for 1 month or 2 months as long as you need it. So we've got interview templates in there, but that's our 2 add-ons that we have.
Well, there is a piece of video interviewing, I think, on the regular platform, correct? Or maybe it was just that I could use a video response for anybody that applied. I didn't do that, but I wish that I would have.
So that would be that piece. So
Okay.
you can send out, it's a real quick, just like send video interview. And then again, you have to sign up for it, the $99 a month. But I mean, the time saving that you can save doing that, I'm sure you can imagine. I mean, just 5 minutes in, 7 minutes a piece, you ran through 5 candidates where you can hear, see, and answer the same question, all 5 of them.
Cool.
So it's a great tool.
That'd be really cool. I love the video interviewing piece too. I agree. That tells you so much more about the person.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Any new features coming down the pipe for Ideal Traits?
Those are real brand new. Those,
yeah.
We actually been working on those for about a year now.
Okay.
And so they're like, the video interviewing is like a month old. Candidate engagement's actually been around about a year now, as we've just been ramping it up and perfecting it and just making it more streamlined and effective. And it's really been taken off. So we do have more that are on the table, and just I can't quite release those information yet. But I just tell you this: ultimately, we've got 26 employees at Ideal Traits. And so a lot of people think like, hey, maybe it's just Kevin and his brother and his friend Todd. And it's like, no, we've got 26 employees. I mean, we have departments, but all of them work in concert for insurance agents to hire the right person. That's all we do. We don't help Home Depots and restaurants, nothing. It literally is so niche, and everybody is versed the same way. Everybody's trained. Everybody knows what an agency has experienced. We actually have a lot of people that have worked in the agency. And then me, my brother, and Todd have a combined, trying to think, I think it was 27 years. So nobody can get it more than we get it. And it's all we do. We're solely focused on insurance. So if you're an insurance agent, you're looking to hire, I mean, we can help. I
highly recommend. And not knowing anything going in, and of course I was a little bit skeptical or reluctant, but that's just my nature for everything. That's where I generally start. I couldn't have been more impressed with the whole entire process. People that I worked with, at Ideal Traits, the platform itself. And yes, I got an amazing result. I was able to narrow down to 3 really, really strong candidates. And he's been with me only a month, but he fits what I thought that I was getting. And to touch base on that assessment, and you touched on it a little bit, as just from my own knowledge, for the 3 that I interviewed, I asked one of my, just kind of an icebreaker question. I sent them the personality trait test or summary, and asked how accurate it was.
Yeah.
And it was, a small sample size, 3, but they kind of got this sheepish grin a little bit and said, it's pretty much dead on.
Yeah.
And
we highly encourage that in our process, to show them the results. And all that's going to do is reinforce the validity of it, but also, just highlight, and they can see what they are and who they are. Sometimes you get someone like, well, the good stuff is me, but the bad stuff, no, not so much. I don't know about that.
There was one, and then they might dispute a piece of it, but it was pretty much, they all pretty much agree with it, which was reassuring to me.
Yeah.
That it was accurate and that it was, it was a good test, because it was my first experience with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I'd highly recommend to anyone well worth the money and the knowledge that you gain from it. And you're dealing with the experts that are doing this, like Kevin's alluded to, that they are only working in the insurance space. So it's geared towards that. Their whole platform is geared towards hiring professionals. So check them out for sure. Kevin, if anybody wants to get a hold of you or sign up, I'm going to leave links in the show notes
Okay.
to Ideal Traits. But if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
If they want to email me, Kevin at idealtraits.com, I'd be happy to help them. We have lots of tools. No catch here. You don't have to buy anything. I mean, I've got hiring guides, and I've got hiring steps. I'll give this to you, the 4-step hiring process, and then questions to ask service and salespeople. If you want the tool on compensation, the ROI on that, I'll send you the link. And so
Yeah.
I am more than happy to share. It's not private information. Like, we help agents, and I'd love to help you. And if you decide to go with Ideal Traits, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. I'll give you what I know and what information we've gathered. You want information on posting a job ad? We've got articles that are written on that. Our help center is vast knowledge. So I'll find something for sure that will match what you're looking for, and just give you that with no strings attached.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you very much, Kevin, for being on this. I mean, this has been so much good information. So many agents are going to get a lot out of this. And again, I can't stress enough how much I'd recommend using this platform. It was just a tremendous help to me, and would be to any agent out there. So again, Kevin, thank you for being here. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Brad.